Hello, Internet. This is Fangirl signing in, and today I will be telling you my favorite book at the moment. I have a lot of favorite books. I have a special part of my shelf dedicated to my favorite books, and this one has recently made the cut. And spoilers, because I will be telling you all about my favorite book and its characters and its plotline because I love it. I love it to pieces. And it is, drumroll, by Stephen King. Anyone who's seen my channels before knows that I am slightly obsessed with Stephen King. I've done a couple of reviews of him already. And as you can see from the lovely illustration, it's The Dark Half. And this tombstone is George Starks, who is not a very nice guy. And on the back of the cover we see the Stephen King himself. Hi, I'm Stephen King. I wrote too many books for Jamie to ever be able to collect in her lifetime. I will never be able to collect all of Stephen King's books. There are way too many Stephen King books for me to collect. It's like, I need them all. I need all of them. It's ridiculous. Anyway, the tombstone on the front, George Stark. George Stark is a fictional character within the story, within another story. Inception. And he is created by Fed Beaumont. Beaumont. I keep pronouncing it wrong in my head, so I keep saying it wrong. Apparently it's pronounced Beaumont, not Beaumont. Anyway, Fed Beaumont, created a series of books called Machine's Way. And George Stark is the main character. And George Stark is this ruthless killing machine. There's nothing that's going to get in his way. He wants something, he's going to get it, no matter who he has to take out, no matter how much blood is spilled, he's going to get what he wants because it's him. That's his character, that's what he does. Now, due to some blackmail, in which someone found out... Oh, I missed a bit of the story. Basically, Fed Beaumont wrote The Machine's Ways under a different pen name that I can't recall off the top of my head. And someone found out that it was actually him and tried to blackmail him, which kind of backfired on the other guy because Fed and his wife Liz basically turned around and went, he's dead, I wrote all of his books, ta-da! I'm so awesome, blah 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 blah, and published it in a magazine, which is where the tombstone comes in, which is actually made of paper mache and had its picture taken at an actual burial site, in which a few days after the article is released, a mysterious hole has emerged in which it looks like someone has clawed their way out of the grave. Now, that might be spooky enough, but this poor guy, Henry's just driving along his truck, coming back from bowling night. He's got a prosthetic leg, he's old, he's very merry, and he sees this poor bloke walking down the road. He's like, hey, let's give him a lift. So he's like, oh, I'm only going a bit up the road, but I can give you a lift away. Anything is better than nothing, right? So George Stark gets into the truck, and a little further down the road, basically beats the old guy to death with his leg, and then takes the car. Now, because Fed Beaumont created George has exactly the same blood type, fingerprints, smoked the same old brand of cigarettes that he used to smoke. It's really creepy, and the police are going mental because they think that it was Fad. But Fad was at a party, and Fad doesn't have a twin or anyone who looks vaguely like him to be able to stand in at the party so that he can drive and kill these people. Because the bloke who tried to blackmail them then gets brutally murdered. I'm not going to go into deaths because I know there are small people watching this, but it is very gruesome. And it is described in extensive detail. If you guys want to check that out, that is just worth the read just in general. And basically, all the people that were involved in the death of George Stark basically dies a horrible, gruesome death because he's gone and murdered them. But George Stark has a problem, and his problem is that he can't write. And he needs to write to be able to live, because obviously George isn't actually real, and he is fed off the imagination of Thad. But since his materialization, he has begun to decay, so he needs to write to be able to recover the strength and energy needed to supply his own lifespan. And Thad doesn't want to do that, because the minute Thad starts writing the next story for George to pass on the power to write, is the instant that Thad begins to die. Because George is actually part of Thad. When Thad was in his mother's womb, there was actually two of them, Thad and George. And basically, it was in vitro cannibalism. Basically, Thad consumed his younger brother while in the womb, and this is actually a common thing that happens in a lot of pregnancies. But the absorption wasn't complete, and I think it was at the age of 13 that Thad began to have headaches and had to have an operation to remove several tumours from his brain. Now, these tumours were very specific in the fact that it was an eyeball and several teeth, which was actually part of George. So once George comes back, he's a little myth that people had tried to kill him, even though he didn't exist fully in the first place. So he's gone around and he's killed all these people. And the twins basically give Thad the idea of how to communicate with George telepathically, and ended up making him stab himself in the hand here. You know, in the little fleshy part? Like that bit. But there's this twist, and that is the Sparrows. Sparrows are harbingers of the dead in cultures such as I can't remember off the top of my head, but I actually done a little research. In several cultures, sparrows are actually harbingers of the dead, and that means they guide lost souls back to the underworld. And since George's arrival, Thad has been seeing hundreds of thousands of sparrows, but George doesn't seem to see these at all. And a key phrase is the sparrows are flying. And that is a phrase that is repeated throughout the book, and that basically means the sparrows are coming for them. Now, whether it's for Thad or for George, you don't really find out till the end of the book. But with all this commotion going on with the murders and how everyone thinks it's Thad, he's got a bit of a problem. He's being tailed for his safety while his wife and kids are with him, and he knows that George is real, and no one else believes that George is real apart from his wife. So he's all like, what am I meant to do? He's killing people, no one's believing me, I created him, he's got all this guilt packed inside of him. So then, here's the thing, George gets hold of his wife and kids and takes them to their summer house, in which he threatens to torch the little one's feet, which still makes me cringe now, it's like little baby feet. But a whole load of stuff happens, and the entire house ends up getting taken out by all these sparrows. Like, George Stark at the end is just lifted up by all these sparrows, and they're ripping him to pieces. And they're basically taking him back. And right at the end, he says thank you to one of the sparrows, one of the few live sparrows left remaining. And it flies towards him, and it pecks him on the cheek. And it draws blood to show that just because they helped him doesn't mean he can control them. And why I love this book so much is because it symbolizes how your creations can go so astray. Like, you can be in love with the mayhem and the dangers, not actually participate in anything that yourself, but the stuff that you can have such a wider impact. All of the stuff inside your head, all your unconscious, if that comes alive, can you imagine what it would do? Would it be like George Stark? Would it go and fight all of the battles that you wanted to fight? Would it go and take out the people that you always secretly wanted to have taken out? Would it go and do the things that you yourself are afraid of doing? Or would it be kind and compassionate? And would it do everything that you want to be instead of who you actually are? And I love the story because of how it looks at that, how it looks at how Thad is dealing with knowing that it's his creation killing them, the looking at the twins and the symbolism and the sparrows. And I really recommend this book. I love this book so much. I've read it so many times now. It's just amazing. Just in case you have forgotten of the title, Stephen King. Sorry, I am a bit obsessed with books. If you guys have a favorite book, let me know, because books are like a little gateway to the soul. Like, anyone who reads a lot knows that there's a little part of you in each book that you read, and when you go back and read it, like, you can remember when you first read it, and you can remember the times that you read it, and it's just so amazing. So if you have a favorite book, let me know. If you like this video, just kind of click the likes button. If you think anyone else would enjoy my ranting obsession about Stephen King's Dark Half and my very brief overview of the plotline, I barely even got to mention like the actual characters, but I'm running out of time, guys. So if you feel like people would enjoy this, kindly click share. Like, I don't really care what you do with the video, as long as you guys enjoyed it. If you didn't enjoy it, let me know why. If you did enjoy it, great! Talk to me in the comments. I love hearing you guys. This is Chat Fangirl, babbling on and on about a book. But for now, I'm signing out.